Goldie, you worked with Webb at the Louisiana Hayride some, didn't you, before he came to the Opry?
My brother Tommy started working for Webb like in January, and 2 months later, Kitty Wells was real hot with Honky Tonk Angels. Webb decided he needed a girl singer in the band, and Tommy said, well, you know, that wasn't a bad place to be. And Tommy said, I got a sister at home. He calls and said, you want to sing? I said, why not? I'm kind of like Stonewall Story. Webb hired me to play bass. I had never helped bass in my life before. Tommy tuned the bass to where Webb sung in E, where I could have open string. He'd say first string, second string. I said, Webb knows. He said, Webb don't know whether you're playing or not. But Webb's the reason I'm got my Decca recording contract, and he came to Nashville. I started working with him in April. We came to Nashville in June. He said to Paul Cohen, I want you to hear the girl singer. I got up and sung 3 or 4 lines. He said, we'll record tomorrow night. So I can't really say anything bad about Webb, except he was a pretty good boss there for about 3 or 4 months.
I'm not sure.
Then he left.
I'm not sure people really realize today the impact he had. I mean, this man was the hottest thing in country music in the early 50s.
You know, Bill, something a lot of people don't know about Webb Pierce, and Webb told me this himself. Webb would always hit his guitar so many times trying to get that tone, you know. I said, Webb, why do you do that? That's irritating. He says, sweetheart, I'm tone deaf. And he was. But he grew to be 50 feet in my eyes one night. We were up in Canada, me and Hawkshaw and Webb and Cowboy Copus. And the dressing rooms were upstairs. I mean, way upstairs. And there was a DJ there. And he was talking to Webb, and Cope was in the dressing room with Webb, and Cope wasn't feeling no pain. And this disc jockey made a really bad remark about Cowboy Copus. Me and Hawkshaw was in the next dressing room over. Webb Pierce grabbed a hold of this guy and was going to throw him over this railing, and Hawkshaw grabbed him. And Webb told him, said, don't you ever talk about any of my friends like that. He said, he is my friend, and scared me to death because it would have killed the guy. But he grew really high in my eyes that night. I love this man. I truly do.
Billy, you worked with Webb at
I was over here recording at the Old Castle Studios back in 1952, and I had been working in Wichita Falls doing a show for Hadacol, a 16-station network hookup for Hadacol, and it just ended. And Webb and Farron come up to my room at the old Clarkston Hotel, and Webb said, when are you going to come visit us on the Louisiana Hayride? And I said, well, hey, my deal is ending with Hadacol. Do you think old Horace had let me come over there and sing? So he picks up the phone and calls Horace Logan. He said, Billy Walker's coming to be on the Louisiana Hayride. Billy, when do you want to come? I said, well, how about the middle of July? And so he got me my deal on the Louisiana Hayride. So he was a great businessman. Yes. Webb was one of the greatest. He could recognize talent and people and songs, and a great artist.
Sonny Osborne said you don't have any Webb Pierce stories, but you've got some great Bill Monroe stories.
How much time do we have? All right. I don't know what year this was, but Mr. Clinton was president at the time, and Bill went to Washington to play for, I think it was the Heritage Award. Is that correct? Yeah. And Frank Sinatra was there. Itzhak Perlman, you all familiar with probably the greatest violinist in the world, was there. And so they're sitting back kind of in the room before the happening. Frank Sinatra goes up to Bill, and Bill, of course, is sitting there with his mandolin, as usual, and Frank Sinatra said, Mr. Monroe, I've admired you for many years, and I would like to introduce myself to you. What's your name? And he said, Frank Sinatra, I'm glad to know you. But what do you do? He said, that's not all. He said, well, sir, and I guess he was kind of taken aback, really. He said, well, sir, I'm going to sing here tonight. And Bill says, well, good luck to you then.
How about sharing a couple of Osborne Brothers songs with us?
Yeah.
Don't get no better, folks.
Test. Get up here with our friend, and this we've been really fortunate in our career. We've been fortunate for the last 45 years in our career to be here. We're fortunate, and were it not for Teddy and Doyle Wilburn, I want to give them credit where credit's due. If it were not for Teddy and Doyle Wilburn, and Leslie and Lester too, we would not be here today. So I want to put that in its proper place. Nor would have had a Decca recording contract and the Grand Ole Opry too. So I want that well documented, and I want it known. Rocky Top in February 15th, 1982, became an official Tennessee state song, and we were lucky enough to go down and play it on the at the place where they do that sort of thing. I guess it's the Capitol building. Is that what it is? Yeah. All right. Yeah. And one guy voted against it, though. That Mr. Ford from Memphis, yes, he voted against it. That's okay, though. We still won. And this song we're going to do now, Kentucky, written by Carl Davis, became our record of it became a Kentucky state song in March 18th, 1992. And so we're fortunate in that sense, and we're going to sing Kentucky for you right now. And our cohort back here is Terry Smith, and if you all will give him a nice hand too. This is Terry Smith.
Outside of heaven to me. Kentucky, your laurel and your redbud tree, when I die, I want to rest upon some peaceful mountain so high. For there is where God will look for me.
me alone. Oh, man.
That's my job.
Yeah.
Eddie Stubbs, what is it you say on the radio when something is just as good as it can be? You have a wonderful expression.
Are there any questions?
No question, but a lot of
Better not
answers.
be any.
Boy, you know what, though, when you stand up here and look at all these people, and you included, Anderson, but look at all...
Call me a beat.
You look at all these people and the other things, the other shows and that I've filmed like this, you when you sit and look around this circle, everybody to the number has one little unique thing that nobody else has, nobody can duplicate. That's why you're here. Every one of you, all of you are like that. And I was talking to my sister's kid. I was talking to Gene and Marty's guy over here, the acting bass player who used to work with Jimmy Newman, who fired him. And lucky for you, buddy. He did. Lucky for you. I talked him into firing you, and look where you got.
Making money now.
No, Dana said to me a while ago, he said, man, I really don't feel that we belong here. And son, I'll tell you right now, if you don't feel you belong here, you need to leave. Because if anybody belongs here, you guys do. You've made your point. That's it. You've made your point. All right, this we're going to do this song. It was written by Dusty Owens, and it came out in 1957. And this song got up to number 11 on the country charts. And of course, in 1957, we didn't know about no chart. We didn't know anything about buying ads. We didn't know anything about doing anything. All we were just two old boys that thought, my gosh, that says there it's number 11. Wonder what that means. And but anyway, and this was before ACUF. Roy covered us on this.
He says you a blanket.
No, he didn't, because we outsold him. No, but we were honored that Mr. Acuff would do such a thing in those days. Nowadays, I wouldn't be that honored that he would do that. But in those days, we were honored that Mr. Acuff would think enough of a song that we had brought out to go ahead and record. But anyway, this one's called Once More.
Once more to be with you, dear, just for tonight, to hold you tight. Once more, I'd give a fortune if I could see you once more. Forget the past, this hurt can't last. Oh, I don't want it to keep us apart. Your love I'll crave, I'll be your slave if you just give me all of your heart. Once more to be with you, dear, just for tonight, to hold you tight. Once more, I'd give a fortune if I could see you once more. Once more.
Wonderful. It don't get no better than that. Jimmy Newman, do you want to talk about Dana Williams being in your band?
Tell it all, brother.
did.
Well, no.
There's something before you fired me, isn't there?
What's the story about the
Sounds like
bus
the Major
catching on
fired.
fire?
Oh, buddy, I can tell you all about that bus catching on fire. We were in Mount Vernon, Illinois, and there was a fellow working with us that Sonny and Bobby know well. All of y'all probably do. A guy named Ray Kirkland was also working with us, and he was driving, and also
He was always driving.
he was.
That's why we were there. He had to quit.
Yeah,
he was
had
tired.
I think some had worn off, and he needed a nap.
He was sick.
So we pulled up to this 76 there in Mount Vernon, and everybody was asleep, and he got back here and got in the bunk, went to sleep, and pulled the door, and of course nobody up, and Jimmy, nature had called him, and he got up and went back to the back
to the studio.
and did that Cajun business, and
I thought I was till I opened that door.
and then as he come back to his bed, he saw this glowing underneath the door, in the bus. And Jimmy opened that door and he saw the bus on fire, and the front lounge was just ablaze. And so he run under it and went there, and I guess he was thinking, I better go for help. He was either thinking I better go for help or I'm getting out of here.
Right after I hollered fire, that's what I thought. And I did.
And he opened the front door to the front lounge, and it's amazing how that fire really likes that air. And about that time, I heard somebody, and here goes a big old bass player out in the parking lot in his underwear running right through the fire. And fortunately, we stood out there and watched the bus completely gutted right there in the parking lot. And there was one funny part. There was an old boy that worked there, a guy that worked there at the 76, and he come up and he was trying to help, and he had pants and he had jackets and he had all this stuff. He ran up to me and he started to give me them pants. He went, "I'm sorry, but them ain't gonna fit you no time." I said, "Well, give me that coat. I'll wrap that around me,
The thing about it, I ran out front, and some of the others were, but Dana and some of the others were in the back, and the door was locked. They used some of that silicone on that trap door, that escape door in that 4104.
Yeah.
And so they were caught. And Bessel Duyon, my Cajun accordion player, is also a Cajun kicker. And that's how they got out. They were trapped. Bessel just laid down and kicked that door open, and they got out. And that door was very secure.
Yeah.
But that's how they got out from the back of that bus.
After firemen got it out and everything, up in the bunks, we had a couple extra bunks, and we would take our guitars upstairs, in the bunks, and I had my bass on the bottom, and on top of that was a fiddle, the fiddle player's fiddle there, and then on the other bunk across the way, Bessel had a 56 Telecaster.
That's right.
That he kept up in that bunk, but he didn't put it in a case, and the fireman was cleaning all that out, and out that back door they were throwing, our burn up boots, and here comes our half shirt, and all of a sudden here come a 56 Telecaster just sailed out through there, and that thing was completely just burnt up, And the fiddle, they opened that fiddle case, and the fiddle case was burned up, but they finally got it apart, and the entire fiddle had just completely come unglued and just went into pieces, all in that case. And my bass laying under there, the case was completely burned up, and I had towels that I laid over top of my guitar, and my case was burned up, and that old Fender orange that they put in their cases, that was all black. But I removed that towel, and there sat that guitar just like a brand new one sitting there. And I took that towel and wrung it out like somebody had laid it in a pool of water, and I wrung the water out of that towel. And I don't know if that towel saved it or what, but I still got the guitar.
Dana, hadn't it been for me just waking up and the fire and everything, I would have not deserted y'all like I did. But I have to admit I did. I hollered fire and got out.
He was honestly going for help, but buddy, it wasn't all of a sudden, playing Cajun stripper just didn't seem to be that important anymore.
Can I assume that was the end of the tour?
No, we were on our way home. It was already the end of the tour. We were just resting.
Actually, we were in one of those truck stops, fortunately, that we went in and Jimmy bought us all new pants and new shirts and new belts and shoes and everything because ain't nobody had anything because, it was sacked out, and...
Did you ever find out what started the fire?
An old wore-out bus. The wiring, yeah.
Oh, the wire. Okay.
Possibly, a star fell from heaven right into my arms. The brightest star I know I've ever seen. Then I found out that it was really you with all your charm, who came into my life to fill a dream. A fallen star, that's what you are. The twinkle in your eye came from the sky. You must have strayed from the Milky Way. A fallen star, that's what you are. A fallen star, that's what you are. The twinkle in your eye came from the sky. You must have strayed from the Milky Way. A fallen star, that's what you are. Thank you all. Yay. Thank y'all for the help.
Boy, it's great to hear you sing that again. It's been a long
Well, it's
time.
great to hear me singing because I don't think I can hit the notes anymore. I don't sing ballads anymore. Pretty love songs. I sing swamp love songs, and they don't phrase exactly the same anymore. And I need to be more in practice, and I will do. If it's at home, I'm gonna practice more and not lose it. After all, let's quit. While I'm ahead. I've been sick.
Pretty young lady with a terrific voice, Tammy Cochran from up in the state of Ohio. You've been extremely quiet today.
I know, I don't want to interrupt.
Why not? Everybody else does.
I know, but my parents always said never interrupt. And so I'm, trying. But now I can talk, right?
Absolutely. Anything you want to say.
Well, I've got a funny story for you. I was coming out here to the Opry, and little Jimmy Dickens was going to introduce me. And there's another country singer who's blonde, whose last name is Cochran. And we always get, Anita Cochran. And we always get asked if we're related or sisters or what have you. And so little Jimmy's out there, and all of a sudden, he goes, "Now this little lady can sure play guitar." And I cannot play guitar at all. And then he goes on to say, she had a duet with Steve Warner. It went to #1. Now, thankfully, he got my name right. So then I was back out here about a month later, and I'm standing on the side talking to Pete Fisher. And we were talking about the last time little Jimmy introduced me. And he goes, "But don't worry, I talked to him. he's got your name. He knows you don't play guitar. And we're talking back and forth. And while we're talking, I hear him say, now this little lady can play a guitar. But it was funny. He's great.
So what, did you correct him when you went out there? Or?
No.
Don't correct him.
Would
I
you have
remember the
corrected
whole
him?
thing. No.
He likes to stand around and talk for a while. He just comes up to about here, and he's
He
pretty
would come up
funny.
just right.
Boy,
Or,
Bill, I have a great little Jimmy story. I don't have a.
Yeah, it was.
I said he would come up just right on her.
Yeah.
I think Craig's got a story.
Long time ago, when I was about 8 years old, my dad brought me to the Opry, and I got to have my picture made with little Jimmy Dickens. And we were about the same height. And I stood beside on his right side and took the picture, and it was just the coolest thing in the world to meet little Jimmy Dickens. Many, many years later, we're doing a show in Michigan at the country festival up there. I think you were on this show. And I had finished my song, and I went out, and Mr. Dickens was in the back, and they was clapping pretty loud, and it was going pretty good. And he says, well, I reckon you better go out there and do another one. They want to hear some more. So I went out and did another song. And I come back, and he said, well, I reckon they want to hear nothing, but you're going to have to wait. And that's why I said, and this fella said, can I take y'all's picture together? And I said, sure, man, if Mr. Dickens don't mind. And I got on his left side, and I said, Mr. Dickens, would you mind if I got on the other side? I said, you won't remember it, but many years ago, when I was 8 years old, I had a picture made with you, and I think it'd be the coolest thing to have, like then and now kind of thing. And he looked up at me and said, well, you're right, I don't remember.
The first time I came to the Opry, and I was so nervous, even more nervous than I was here today, if that's believable. But I was so nervous, and I've never really gotten nervous to the point where I thought I would, get sick. And I was really close that night, and I walked out there, and Johnny Russell introduced me, and I thought, I'm going to walk out there and sing, and then walk right back and run. And I get out there, and he starts talking to me. And I'm like, oh, my gosh, I didn't expect this. I got to talk to this guy. I don't know what I'm going to say. And so he goes, talks about the song, and the things I've been doing. He goes, so you married? And I knew where this was going. I mean, I've been in too many bars not to know where this is going. And I said, no, you ought to. You want to do it? You want to get married? And he just didn't know what to say because I caught him off guard. And when I got done singing, I walked back, and Jeannie Seeley came up to me, and she said, honey, you're going to fit in good around here. But it was great. It was great.
Can I tell a Johnny Russell story? I found out that Big Johnny was sick, and I called that morning, and I hadn't gotten the news yet that he passed away that morning, so I didn't get to talk to him one last time before. We wound up doing a lot of shows together. Y'all have all worked that Shrine Mosque in Peoria, Illinois. Everybody here has worked it, right? Well, it's back when I was just doing it before the brothers got there. I'd sit on a stool and play these songs nobody ever heard of. It was the Statler brothers and Johnny and me. So Johnny'd been on, I'd been on, and the Statler brothers were out there doing whatever happened to Randolph Scott. They were doing. Well, Johnny and I'd been out doing something, and we came in, and just as fate would have it, we're sitting back there, and we're changing clothes, and we're talking. And I knew him; we'd been on shows together, and I loved him. That great sense of humor we tell him stories. So we're changing our clothes. Well, all of a sudden, in mid-song, we hear this. Everybody stomp your feet, kind of walk like. That's what we heard. And the Statler brothers stopped singing. Whatever happened to Randolph? They stopped. The music stopped, and we heard they were evacuating that old theater. I thought, dear God, I'm going to die naked in a fire with Johnny Russell. I just knew this place was on. That's the first thought that went through my mind. Because Russell and I are sitting there changing clothes. And when you hear people stop singing and people start leaving, what had happened, the Statler brothers had parked that old 4104 that I later bought that still had a case of Vienna sausage in under Harold's bunk. I'm serious, God is my witness. But anyway, they had parked that bus in that alley on the other side, not in the back, but they parked and left that Onan running, and that intake thing that was bringing air into the auditorium was sucking all those fumes into this hall, and people were getting sick and leaving. They stopped in the middle. I knew it was a fire, so we let the air, let that thing air out. People came back in, and the Statler brothers went, Scott, da 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 da. They started on the next word, and I thank God I did not die naked in the fire with Johnny.
Vince Gill, you have been one of the real leaders among the young artists in getting them to come out here to the Grand Ole Opry. Talk about that.
Well, I don't fancy myself that. People, I think when people talk about it, they think I'm being critical of my contemporaries, and I'm not. I figured that the best way to lead is not by opening your mouth and saying a bunch of stuff you don't need to say, but just by example. So I'm out here, and this is a great place. I came out here, and my father died, and the neat part about this for someone my age is that, my father and my mother and my family, I lived a lot of all y'all's music through them. And when you get to meet Jimmy Dickens, or you get to meet Roy Acuff or Chet or whoever it is, you realize that how passionate you are as a kid about music. My parents were that way one time. So getting to live some of these memories with all these people was just as much for my parents as it was for me. And it's just been the greatest, 10 or 12 years, however long I've been coming out here, that you could imagine.
But you had all these big hit records, well-produced records and songs, but many nights, just Vince Gill and his guitar, and you walked to the middle of the stage. I think that says a lot about you and your love for the Opry and your talent as a musician and a singer, just you and that guitar.
Well, it's
kind of like being naked with Johnny Russell.
That's not that bad. Me and
Have you ever seen Johnny Russell naked? That is not
I don't believe I'd have told that, preacher.
But no, did that? It evidently didn't intimidate you. A lot of us, that would really intimidate, just to walk out there with a guitar and sing and perform at the Grand Ole Opry.
Well, once you think about it, that's how all these songs got written. They didn't get written with a great band sitting over there having the charts and knowing the stuff. They really, these songs were born out of somebody's soul and somebody's guitar, and
sitting on the side of the bed.
Exactly right. And it's kind of neat to hear them in their infancy stages instead of all the time as the finished, polished, beautiful record that's been made, And being a musician, I think, has probably guided me more than being a quote-unquote famous person or a star or whatever you want to call it, because I've always operated with a musician's mentality, and that's kind of scary. But but it just made the most. It made the most sense. I love being out here. I love getting up and singing a song with Jimmy. I love getting to sing. I sang the other night with Hank Lachlan, and that's how I've approached my career. It wasn't all about just my records, just my touring, just me. I was given a gift by God, and to me, the way to honor that is to share it.
Yeah.
So I spent 25 years. When somebody calls, hey, you want to come sing on a record? Yeah, that's fun.
He came in and done my project, and I was out of town, and he was mad at me.
I wasn't
found out about
it.
Mad because he wasn't there?
I wasn't there.
I don't think I was.
No.
Only
I'm
time
just
I get
kidding.
mad's on the golf course. I think everybody knows that.
He will get mad. He will get mad on a golf course. Trust me.
Yeah,
He get mad on the golf course.
my favorite story is I had we were on tour in Canada and playing golf with some of the guys in the band, and I had this great set of old Hogan irons that were, irreplaceable, and I got mad at a shot, and I just kind of inadvertently just pitched it back at my bag.
Bullcorn, you did.
No, I did.
You've never inadvertently played. Don't start with it. You threw it. You threw it at the golf cart, and it. Now
I didn't
start
interrupt your naked story with Johnny. But I know the difference between a tomahawk and just kind of nuts.
You know? And this one was not a tomahawk, but it just bounced off the bag and went right in this lake right in front of me. And I said, "Oh my God!" You know, I didn't even throw that hard. I had a friend that was playing one time, and he threw a club over the hill, and he didn't realize there was a lake on the other side of the hill. But I said, I've got to get that club. I can't leave that here. So off came all my clothes, big nose dive into this lake, and I found my 9-iron in the bottom of this lake, and these guys were all on the ground just dying laughing. So that night on the show, as I came out there, and there was a snorkel mask and 2 fins. But you know, back to doing that, it always felt like a compliment to your talent to say, "Hey, will you come and play on somebody's record, or come and sing on somebody's record?" That's all I ever really wanted to do, and just kind of fell into writing songs and singing lead. Well, you've certainly done it well. How about borrowing Billy Walker's Grand Ole Opry guitar
Appreciate you, sir.
and laying something on us here, sharing that marvelous talent? All right, I'll sing you this song I wrote about my dad. It's okay. He had a great sense of humor. He had an amazing sense of humor. But when my dad passed away about 4 years ago, there was all kinds of, you know, the way life circles around is pretty unique. And I do want to tell this story about Jimmy Dickens. You know, when I got to do something really neat, like I called my dad and I said, "Hey, Dolly Parton called and asked if I'd sing a duet with her," and he goes, "I'll be right down." You know, and he came immediately from Columbus, Ohio, and he wanted to meet Dolly. Biggest smile I ever saw on his face. He was kind of looking like this in the picture, but when he came and met Jimmy Dickens for the first time, he loved Bird of Paradise, you know, but he also loved a song that I didn't know, the Country Boy song, Plain Old Country Boy. And he said, "Jimmy, I can't find a copy of that anywhere. I'd love to have a copy of that." And Jimmy says, "Well, I'll just send you one," you know, and found one and sent it to him. And I didn't think anything about it, and I didn't know anything about it. But when we did the eulogy for my father, I just wanted to play songs, you know. And I remembered that story of him meeting Jimmy Dickens and wanting a copy of that record, but I didn't know why. So first thing I did, we had this priest guy come up and do some stuff. My dad wasn't the most religious man in the world, but his partner felt like she needed that for some closure and this and that, and did all that. And then came me in a boombox playing Little Jimmy Dickens, you know, because I'm just a country boy, you know. And I finished playing that song, and I said, I'd, you know, like for my dad's brother to come up here and just say a few words, you know, about my dad. And he got up there, and he was really taken that song had been played. And he said, I can't believe you played that song. He said, when we were little boys, we were maybe 5 years old, he said, we got a little 45 record player for Christmas one year when we were about 4 or 5 years old, and the first record we ever had was that one. So you never know. I'd love to hear my daddy play once again all the songs that he taught me when I was a kid. John Henry, Old Shep, and Fading Love. I fall to pieces and on the wings of a dove. Just a few chords on the banjo, well, that was all he knew. But in the eyes of a child, man, his fingers flew. Well, I practiced and I practiced till I got it right. I packed up everything and just took off one night. Well,
Well, I made it from the beer joints to the Opry stage, but he said the only difference is what you're getting paid. And he didn't care that everybody knew my name. He said it's all for nothing if you don't stay the same. And when he died, the preacher cried and said he's the lucky one. Well, he's walking hand in hand with God's only son. Well, my faith and common sense tell me the preacher's right, but I'd love to hear the banjo ring for me tonight. And I will honor my father with these words I write down, and as long as I remember him, he'll always be around. Man, the pain of losing him cuts like a Randall knife. I learned a few chords on the banjo was the key to life. Yeah, the pain of losing him cuts like a Randall knife. I learned a few chords on the banjo was the key to life. Play, Sonny. Let me hear that banjo, buddy.
You don't want to do that to me again. Man, I'm sitting here into that song, and when I've heard you sing that before, but I didn't, the last line, I never could know exactly what it was because it was so quiet, and I know now. And when you said play that, I thought, no way, brother. That's strong. That is strong.
Thank you very much. You know, the banjo's taken a beating its whole life.
Yeah, well.
I just love that my dad played the banjo. He couldn't play very well, but he taught me everything he knew, and it was really neat. But the banjo has taken a serious beating in jokes. There was a guy in a music store, and there's a huge line, and long line, only one cashier, and the line's waiting and waiting, and finally he says, "Excuse me," and everybody stopped and looked at him. He goes, "Where are the condoms?" And this clerk kind of walked around and said, "Buddy," he says, "it's a music store." He said, "We don't have condoms here." And he goes, "I know, I just need a set of banjo strings."
Whoa! I shall remember that. I shall remember that. When I call the company, I'll say, "Send me 200 sets of." Do you know, it's funny you mentioned that about the banjo take a beating. Did you know that Marty Robbins absolutely did not like a banjo? He didn't, and Haskell McCormick just worried him to death until he told him, he said, "Okay, I'm going to hire you for 1 year." And he said, "If you can convince me that I should like the banjo, then you can stay. But if you don't, you're out." 1 year to the day, he fired him. True story. What's that old thing about somebody asked Franklin Delano Roosevelt how many strings was on a banjo? He said, 5, I fear.
I never knew Rod. Of course, I knew Minnie.
Seeing Minnie brought back some wonderful, wonderful memories. And I asked her one night backstage here, I said, "Minnie, do you ever get nervous before you go on stage?" She said, "Well, I don't know whether you call it nervous or not, but butterflies, yes." I said, "You still get butterflies?" She said, "When you lose the butterflies, you need to quit." Amen. She said, because that would be taking it for granted.
When Tammy was talking a minute ago about that she was nervous being here and all like that, I wonder which one of us that has sung or performed on any of these things or any time on this stage, if you don't get nervous, you shouldn't be here. That's right. I mean, you don't feel it. This has got to be the most important thing in the world to you. And if it's that important, you're going to get nervous. When they introduce you, you're going to get nervous.
Got that right.
So you're among friends. Believe me, you are.
Can I tell a mini story, please? I know I've talked a lot today, but this is the first one I've ever been on, and they may not ask me back. I'm gonna tell everything I know. She was always, she was always so sweet to me and to my brothers and my family. You know, she was good friends at Dottie's, who was, Dottie West, who was very important in my career, and bringing me here. I'd be a bad lawyer in Houston somewhere probably, if it weren't for Dottie. And this story has no punchline, but of all the memories that I have of Minnie, after she'd had her stroke, and she finally got out of the hospital, she moved home, and Henry was taking care of her, and they had nurses and stuff, to take care of her. So it was Valentine's Day. Well, I went to the store and bought a box of chocolate candy, because I hadn't seen her. I'd been on tour and hadn't been able to see her in the hospital. So I came over there, and it was Valentine's Day, and Henry met me at the door. He said, "Now, Larry," I said, "Minnie," said, "she recognizes people, but she doesn't say anything. She hadn't really talked to anybody in about 2 weeks, not even me." I said, "Don't let that hurt your feelings. I know she loved you, boy." And I said, "Well, that's all right. Whatever. I just want to see her." So I went in there, and she was laying there, and she kind of looked at me, and I walked across in front of the bed and sat down beside her. And she was kind of propped up there in her bed. And I said, "Minnie Pearl, I love you, and you're my sweetheart. Today's Valentine's Day, and we're going to eat every burn one of these chocolates." And she said, "Larry Gatlin, you're a nut." And we sat there, and we ate every one of those chocolates. And I remember just wiping a little chocolate drool off. She didn't say another word to me, but we ate those chocolates, and we had a great Valentine's Day. That's my last memory of her. She was sweet to me, and I love and respect her very much, and I miss her.
We all do. I think it's a little bit ironic that Elizabeth Cook is seated next to Stonewall Jackson. No pre-planning went into that, because Elizabeth Cook is one of those rare people, like Stonewall, that's been on the Opry many times. You sang here before you had a recording contract, before all of the other things. Like Stonewall, you kind of did it backwards, but you've been on the Opry dozens and dozens of times.
Yeah, upwards
now.
of 60 times now, and I can't believe it. I don't know what I did to get such a stroke of luck, but it's funny how things come full circle. Because I can remember when I was 9 years old, I saw my first live Opry show, and it had already moved to the Opry House by that time. And I went down and stood at the front of the stage, and little Jimmy Dickens was playing. And during the solo, he came over and he bent down and he kissed my hand. He did, and I remember it like, oh my, my first love experience was with little Jimmy Dickens. And,
Things went up from there.
now let me tell you, he might be little. I thought I'd be the last person y'all'd have to edit out. But anyway,
No editing.
now when I sing on his portion of the Opry, and we meet over there in the wings as we're about to go on, he always walks over and kisses my hand. Now, I've never told him the story about the time that he did it when I was 9, but I know one of these days we'll get a chance to talk about it.
Are you nervous today?
Oh yeah, yeah. I've had like a liquid calories is about all I can.
Me too.
I can tell.
Can you take a good deep breath and sing us a great song? This
Sure.
lady's got a
And I guess I've
wonderful-
learned a tradition here today. I'm going to have to send Jesse Coulter a blanket. Let's do I'm Not Lisa, y'all. I'm not Lisa. My name is Julie. And Lisa left here years ago. My eyes are sun. I think I about squeezed the guts out of this mic.
Does she remind anybody here of Loretta Lynn besides me? There's just something about your way and yeah, but just the genuineness of her personality.
Just her person.
Personality.
Yeah, that's what I
Well,
mean.
she seems, Loretta, as you know, and everybody knows, is just, she's Loretta. She's honest, she's real. She never changes, and Elizabeth
I
reminds
got to
me.
be on Loretta's portion the other night of the show, and she had on this really big blue, unbelievable dress like nothing I've ever seen. You know, rhinestones and puffy sleeves and ruffles trailing behind her for 5 feet. And I had on this little glittery thing, you know. She introduced me, and I walked out, and she said, "Look at that dress sparkle." I said, "This ain't nothing." She can wear a dress.
She can. But what I'm really wanting to say is stay as real as Loretta and as real as you are.
Well, thanks.
now.
I don't think I have a choice. I had a few people talk to me about, well, you want to try acting or something. I was like, I don't know if I can.
I think for those of us that have been around the Opry and been around this business for a while, I think we can look at Tammy Cochran and Elizabeth Cook and Shalee Tennyson and Craig Morgan and Blake Shelton and Darrell Worley. I think country music's in some pretty good hands. I think it absolutely is. Yeah.
Well, I tell you what, I'll never.
Vince Gill, of course.
It seems like it's just getting. I know it's always been a tough business, but it seems like more and more it's about the dollars and cents, and it's a tough time right now, and I'm feeling it. And the Opry is an oasis for me. It's a place where I can come and play and have a positive experience. And there's been weeks when it was the only positive experience I had all week. And to come out and have an outlet to play music and see all you guys, and you smile at me and you make me feel welcome, and it keeps me going. It really does.
It's kept a lot of us going just like that for a lot of years through a lot of times. Darrell
I sure
Worley, you've been on
understand.
the Opry a good bit lately too, and it's always
Yes,
great
sir.
to have you here. I get the feeling that your roots are pretty deep in country.
No doubt about it. You know, what she was just saying, the thing about the Opry to me that makes it, I mean, we're out there just beating it up for the last 2 or 3 months, you know, and playing every date we can. And a lot of these guys know what I'm talking about. A lot of times at this stage, you play dates where you're not making money. You might break even if you're lucky, but when I was a carpenter, I had to build houses whether I was making money or not so I could keep my crew. And that's kind of what we do a lot of times. But when you come out here, people are not looking down their nose at you because you hadn't had a top 10 or 10 top 10s or 5 number 1s. They judge you by how real you are. And that's what I love about it. And I mean, I cannot begin to tell you people how much it means to me to be here with y'all today.
You didn't have far to come. Savannah, Tennessee. That's pretty close to
That's
Nashville.
not too far, about a little over 2 hours down the road. And everybody down there watches the Opry like it's the only thing on TV, and for a long time it was. You know, we got a song about that.
Still is.
But, you know, the special thing to me is to be in this circle. I feel like a part of the family just for being here. But I watched Dana watching you two guys up there playing a while ago, and you could see the pride on his face. And I know y'all are cutting up and carrying on. That's all right. Y'all go ahead. But I could tell, you know, just watching him. And that's what music does. It'll bring us all closer together if we'll let it.
Yeah. How about a song?
You might get me now. I just knew I'd have to follow Vince Gill, but...
Hey, he planned it that way.
I've got one. I got a tune that I'm going to play that it's kind of scary. I hadn't played it in about a month and a half or 2 months, and I actually wrote the song to perform the first time I ever played the Opry stage, and I did that. And I told the story about how I had all of my life wanted to come to the Grand Ole Opry and see the show, and we were just 2 hours away, which was a long ways away when I was growing up. And let me clear something up too. I'm probably not one of the youngest of the younger ones, but I am one of the new ones, so it's good to be here. But when I got into town and started writing for a living, that whole thing, and had been up here for several years, I had several people that offered to bring me out here, you know, and do the whole backstage thing. And I thought, spent all this time, I hadn't got to go. Who knows, you know, in the next year or two, I might get me a record deal and they might ask me to play the Opry. I believe I'm just going to wait. So the first time I came to play was the first time I'd ever been. And it was really a great experience. I mean, I talk about just about to fall off the stage now. I was about as nervous as I am right now. But before we kick into this thing, I'd like for everybody to give this band a round of applause because they do a wonderful job.
And the drummer.
Three musicians and a drummer.
Y'all just come in there anytime you're ready.
They don't waste nothing here.
This is a tune that was written about people that have kind of paved the way for us younger guys that are out here trying to carry on a tradition, and it's called Borrowed Wings. Well, I'd like to say a special thanks to those who would have stood on this stage and put every ounce of heart and soul they had in the music that they made. And this peace of mind and confidence I feel, it comes from somewhere else. And I'd be crazy if I said that I believed I could do this by myself. Tonight I'll fly on borrowed wings, up so high where angels sing, miles above all earthly things. Tonight I'll fly on borrowed wings. This tradition that I vow to carry on can be a heavy load. Following the footprints that they left on this long and winding road. And if I ever feel like I'm about to fall, I turn and face the wind. And in a moment, 1,000 unseen hands lift me up again. Tonight I'll fly on borrowed wings, up so high where angels sing, miles above all earthly things. Tonight I'll fly on borrowed wings. Tonight I'll fly on borrowed wings. Thank you. Thank you.
That's great, man. One of the hazards of sitting in the chair where I am is overlooking something. And when I went around the room and talked about the young people, Mandy Barnett's been sitting behind me all day. Bless your heart, honey. I couldn't see you back there, okay. But you're certainly one of the great young new talents in the business. And I went right by the Diamond Trio, too, and I didn't mean to do that. But so much wonderful, wonderful young talent in this room. Billy Walker's been at the Grand Ole Opry for a little longer than 1 or 2 weeks, haven't you?
41 years and 9 months.
But who's counting?
I joined the Grand Ole Opry the first day of 1960. I played a New Year's Eve gig with my Western Swing Band in Fort Worth, and when 12 o'clock came and we sang Old Lang Syne, I hopped in my car and I drove straight to Nashville and got in here just in time to rehearse with the band, crawl on the stage, and Ernest Tubb introduced me. And he said, now, Billy said, you're going to come to the record shop tonight. He said, you need the exposure. Man, I'd done been up 24 hours. So I went over and did Ernest's Midnight Jamboree before I got to bed. But it was a wonderful experience. It's just like all these guys here.
Use an old yellow if you did all
Yeah, but you had been part of a couple of other big shows. You had been a part of the Big D Jamboree in Dallas. You'd been a part of the Louisiana Hayride in Shreveport. What was the difference?
And the Ozark Jubilee.
And the
with Red
Ozark
Foley.
Jubilee. That's right.
Yeah.
What was the difference after being on those shows coming to the Opry?
Well, you know, the Grand Ole Opry has always been regarded as the epitome of success. If you ever made it to the Grand Ole Opry, that's where all the stars were. In everybody's mind, the Grand Ole Opry was the top, the cream
It still is.
of the business.
It still is
Yeah.
that way. Yeah. And that may be the first time the word epitome's ever been spoken on this stage.
That's a great hillbilly word.
I'll spit it out if you want me to.
Okay, all of these years at the Opry, do you ever get nervous coming out here?
Are you kidding? Certainly, I still get butterflies. We did a new song the other night, and I thought, Lord, let this song come off right. I know I've been out here a lot of times, but the thing about it is, when you introduce a new song, when you're doing something that's a little bit strange to you, you always wonder, well, is this crowd going to like me, or are they going to sit on their hands? And that's all what we vie for. Our success is determined by the people that sit out there and what kind of a response you get for your talent. And that's everybody in this place right here. If you go out there and you feel like you've laid a bomb and the crowd says, oh, entertain me, okay, come on. But when you go out there and this magic happens, that it's called show business, that's called singing your song, entertaining the public, and they love you. You walk away like you own the world, and there's no other feeling in the world that's quite like this feeling.
Sonny Osborne and I were talking. You know what I'm going to tell? I've got to tell this because a dear friend of mine named Texas Bill Strength, who was a country disc jockey and singer for many years. Texas Bill told me one time, he said, you've got to put it in your mind before you walk out there. You've got to say, to keep from being nervous, you've got to say, I'm better than they are. I'm better than they are. He said, just say that to yourself. So Sonny and I were talking one night, and he was getting ready to go out, and he said he was nervous. And so I said to you, I said, just think, Bill Strength told me, just think, I'm better than they are, I'm better than they are. And about that time, they introduced the Osborne brothers. He walked out about 3 steps. He was going, I'm better than they are, I'm better than they are, I'm better than they're better than I am.
He pulled the same thing on me, Sonny. Yeah. Sonny did. I don't know whether it was
Greensboro,
there.
North Carolina.
Greensboro, North Carolina.
Yes, sure did.
Have you ever had serious stage fright? I mean, so bad that you throw up. I mean, that's how bad it was. I was not going out there. For one thing, Don Bowman was on the stage. Anybody know Don Bowman, a comedian that was on Bill's television show for a lot of times? He was on stage, and there was a woman heckler. There was nothing worse than a woman heckler sitting right down front row. And she was tearing him to bits. And I was next. And I said, I'm not going out there. She'll kill me. I mean, I didn't know how to handle that thing, and he wasn't doing too well. So I said, I'm not going. And Sonny, I went back in the dressing room, and Sonny pushed me out there, and he said, yes, you are going out there. Remember, you're better than they are. They paid to get in. You didn't. And he literally pushed me on stage when it was my time, and I was not going out there. But he pushed me on stage. I sang about 3 songs. That woman was tearing me to pieces. And I turned around to him and I said, "You're wrong, Sonny. She's better than I am." But I toughed it out. But finally, I got a little braver and I said something to her that shut her up. Irish and Indian clash.
Serious fright.
Serious.
Serious fright happens on this stage, or the Ryman. When you introduced us when we were members in 1964, and we had been guests to that point, and this hadn't happened. But when you introduced us and we came out there, and at that time, almost all the Opry cast would line up backstage and watch you. It's almost like, go, all right, you're out there, you're a member now, show me you belong here. And we were out there, and I think Bobby was singing Ruby, and I was to his right, and I kind of looked around, and standing in a chair was Lester Flatt. And I mean, this is one of my heroes of my whole lifetime. Lester Flatt is standing in a chair, and I could see him from up here up, and it scared me. And the feeling, though, is lonely. When you get out there and everything dies down, the MC leaves, it's you and them. And you're a member of the Grand Ole Opry, you're standing in this circle or at the Ryman, and it's lonely. You're all by yourself, and it's up to you at that point. When I came here as a 14-year-old kid and worked for Bill Monroe, the first night, I was scared completely, absolutely. I almost refused to go, but I didn't know any better and went out there, and my whole body was shaking. I mean, this is serious fright we're talking about here.
And as Minnie says, if you don't get a little nervous, it doesn't mean enough to you.
Nope, you don't belong.